Chapter 1. The scent of freshly brewed coffee wafted through the air, mingling with the soft hum of conversation and the gentle clinking of cups on saucers. It was a typical Wednesday morning at the Cozy Cup, the local cafe where Ava Jenkins had spent countless hours sipping lattes and people watching. As she waited in line, her eyes wandered to the window, where the morning sunlight danced across the wet pavement, casting a mesmerizing pattern of light and shadow. Ava's gaze drifted back to the barista, a friendly woman with a warm smile, as she expertly crafted a cappuccino. "The usual, Ava?" she asked, her voice a gentle melody. Ava nodded, and the barista handed her a steaming cup. "Thanks, Emily. You're a lifesaver." As Ava took a sip of her coffee, her eyes landed on a man sitting at a small table by the window. He was engrossed in his phone, his dark hair mussed, and his features chiseled in a way that made her heart flutter and skip a beat. There was something about him that seemed familiar, yet she couldn't quite place him. Ava's curiosity got the better of her, and she found herself glancing at the man every few minutes, trying to place him. It wasn't until he looked up and caught her staring that she felt a flush rise to her cheeks. Their eyes met, and for a moment, time stood still. Ava's heart pounded in her chest as she felt a jolt of electricity run through her veins. She quickly looked away, her face burning with embarrassment. The man, however, didn't seem to mind. He smiled, a small, enigmatic smile that made Ava's heart skip another beat. "You're staring at me," he said, his voice low and husky. Ava's eyes snapped back to his, and she felt a spark of defiance ignite within her. "Maybe I am," she said, her voice a little too loud. "Maybe I'm just admiring your good looks." The man's smile grew, and he leaned back in his chair, his eyes never leaving hers. "I'm flattered," he said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. Ava's face grew hotter, but she refused to back down. "I'm Ava," she said, extending her hand. The man took it, his handshake firm. "Ethan," he replied, his eyes never leaving hers. As they shook hands, Ava felt a jolt of electricity run through her body. It was as if the entire cafe had melted away, leaving only the two of them, suspended in a moment of pure connection. And then, just as suddenly, it was over. Ethan released her hand, and Ava felt the world snap back into focus. She smiled, a little too brightly, and took a step back, her eyes never leaving his. "Well, it was nice meeting you, Ethan," she said, her voice a little too loud. Ethan's smile grew, and he nodded, his eyes never leaving hers. "Likewise, Ava," he said, his voice low and husky. As Ava turned to leave, she felt a sense of disappointment wash over her. She had been so caught up in the moment, so caught up in the spark of connection between them, that she hadn't even noticed the time. She glanced at her watch, and her heart sank. She was already running late for work. "Sorry, I have to go," she said, feeling a pang of regret. Ethan nodded, his smile fading. "No problem," he said, his voice a little too casual. "I'll catch you around, Ava." Ava nodded, feeling a sense of longing wash over her. She knew she'd see him again, but she had no idea when or if it would be the same. As she turned to leave, she felt a sense of uncertainty wash over her. She had no idea what the future held, but she knew one thing for sure. She'd be thinking about Ethan for a long time to come. Chapter 2. A glimpse of the past. Ava's mind wandered as she walked to work, her feet carrying her on autopilot while her thoughts lingered on the mysterious stranger she'd met at the Cozy Cup. She couldn't shake the feeling that she'd seen him before, but where? And why did he seem so familiar? As she turned the corner onto Main Street, Ava's gaze landed on the old art studio where she'd spent countless hours as a child. Her mother, a talented artist, had taught her the basics of painting and drawing, and Ava had spent hours poring over her mother's old sketchbooks, marveling at the way she could capture the world with just a few strokes of her brush. Ava's thoughts turned to her mother, who had passed away a few years ago. She missed her dearly, but the memories they'd shared in that studio were some of her fondest. As she approached the studio, Ava noticed a small exhibit of her mother's work on display in the window. Her heart swelled with emotion as she gazed at the familiar paintings, each one a testament to her mother's talent and passion. Ava's eyes landed on a particular painting, one that she remembered her mother working on when she was a child. It was a beautiful seascape, with waves crashing against the shore and a stormy sky above. Ava's mother had told her that it was her favorite painting, the one that had inspired her to become an artist in the first place. As Ava gazed at the painting, she felt a sense of nostalgia wash over her. She remembered the way her mother used to talk about the ocean, about the way it made her feel small and insignificant, yet at the same time, connected to something much bigger than herself. Ava's thoughts turned back to Ethan, and she wondered if he might be the kind of person who appreciated the beauty of the ocean. She felt a pang of disappointment that she'd never get to find out. But then, she remembered the way he'd smiled at her, the way his eyes had crinkled at the corners. Ava's heart fluttered as she realized that she was still thinking about him. She couldn't believe it. She'd only met him a few hours ago, and yet she couldn't shake the feeling that she'd known him her whole life. As she stood there, lost in thought, Ava heard a voice behind her. "Hey, Ava, I didn't know you were an art lover." Ava turned to see a friend from work, a woman named Rachel, standing behind her with a curious expression. Ava smiled, feeling a little self-conscious. "I guess I am," she said, gesturing to the painting in the window. "My mom used to paint all the time. She was really talented." Rachel's eyes widened in surprise. "I had no idea," she said. "I'll have to come see your mom's work sometime." Ava nodded, feeling a sense of gratitude towards Rachel. It was nice to have someone to share her memories with. As they chatted, Ava couldn't help but wonder if Ethan might be interested in art. She felt a pang of disappointment that she'd never get to find out, but then she remembered the way he'd smiled at her, the way his eyes had crinkled at the corners. Chapter 3. A Glimpse of the Future. Ava's mind was still reeling from her encounter with Ethan as she walked into the office. She couldn't believe how much she'd thought about him in such a short amount of time. It was as if their meeting had awakened a part of her that she'd never known existed. As she settled into her cubicle, Ava's coworker, Emily, poked her head over the partition. "Hey, Ava, how was your morning?" Ava smiled, feeling a little self-conscious. "It was good. I met someone at the cafe this morning." Emily's eyes widened in interest. "Oh? Who was it?" Ava hesitated, unsure of how much to reveal. "Just someone I met at the cafe. His name is Ethan." Emily's eyes sparkled with curiosity. "Tell me more." Ava laughed, feeling a little embarrassed. "There's not much to tell. We just met and exchanged numbers. I don't know. There was just something about him." Emily nodded, her expression understanding. "I know what you mean. Sometimes you just click with someone, you know?" Ava nodded, feeling a sense of relief. "Exactly. It's like we just connected." As they chatted, Ava's mind began to wander. She couldn't help but wonder what the future held for her and Ethan. Would they ever see each other again? Would they ever... Ava's thoughts were interrupted by the sound of her phone buzzing on her desk. She glanced at the screen, her heart fluttering, as she saw Ethan's name flashing on the display. With her heart racing, Ava picked up the phone, her hand shaking slightly as she answered. "Hey," Ethan's voice said on the other end of the line. "I was just wondering if you'd like to grab coffee with me again, sometime this week." Ava's heart soared as she smiled, feeling a sense of excitement wash over her. "I'd love to," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Ethan's laughter echoed through the phone, sending a shiver down Ava's spine. "Great. I'll pick you up at 2 p.m. on Friday?" Ava nodded, even though he couldn't see her. "Sounds perfect." As they made plans, Ava couldn't help but feel a sense of excitement building inside her. She had no idea what the future held, but she was eager to find out. "Hey, Ava?" Ethan's voice said on the other end of the line. "Yeah? I'll see you on Friday." Ava smiled, feeling a sense of anticipation wash over her. "I'll be there." As she hung up the phone, Ava couldn't help but feel a sense of wonder. What would the future hold for her and Ethan? Only time would tell. But one thing was for sure. Ava was ready to find out. Chapter 4. A Glimpse of the Past. Revisited. Ava's excitement about her upcoming date with Ethan was still building as she walked into the office on Friday morning. She couldn't help but feel a sense of nervous energy, wondering what the day would bring. As she settled into her cubicle, Ava's coworker, Emily, poked her head over the partition. "Hey, Ava, how's it going?" Ava smiled, feeling a little self-conscious. "It's going great. I'm just a little nervous." Emily's eyes sparkled with understanding. "About the date?" Ava nodded, feeling a sense of relief. "Yeah, I don't know what to expect." Emily leaned in, her voice barely above a whisper. "Just be yourself, Ava. That's all anyone can ask for." Ava nodded, feeling a sense of gratitude towards her friend. "Thanks, Emily. You're a lifesaver." As the day wore on, Ava found herself glancing at the clock every few minutes, wondering when Ethan would arrive. She couldn't help but feel a sense of excitement building inside her, wondering what the day would bring. Finally, at 2 p.m. sharp, Ethan arrived at the office. Ava's heart skipped a beat as she saw him standing in the lobby, looking handsome in a pair of dark jeans and a white button-down shirt. As he walked towards her, Ava felt a sense of nervous energy building inside her. She couldn't help but wonder what the day would bring, or what Ethan might be like in person. "Hey," Ethan said, smiling as he approached her. "You look beautiful." Ava's heart skipped a beat as she smiled, feeling a sense of gratitude towards him. "Thanks," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. As they chatted, Ava found herself feeling more and more at ease. Ethan was easy to talk to, and she couldn't help but feel a sense of connection with him. As they walked out of the office, Ava couldn't help but feel a sense of excitement building inside her. She had no idea what the day would bring, but she was eager to find out. As they walked to the car, Ava noticed a small painting on the wall of the office building. It was a beautiful seascape, with waves crashing against the shore and a stormy sky above. Ava's heart skipped a beat as she realized that the painting was the same one she'd seen in the window of the art studio earlier that week. "Hey, Ethan," Ava said, feeling a sense of curiosity. "Can I ask you something?" Ethan turned to her, his eyes flashing with interest. "What is it?" Ava pointed to the painting on the wall. Is that the same painting I saw in the window of the art studio earlier this week?" Ethan's eyes widened in surprise and he nodded. "Yes, it is. I'm a big fan of your mom's work. I went to some of her exhibitions when I was a young, scruffy hippie." Ava's heart skipped a beat as she felt a sense of wonder building inside her. "Really?" she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Ethan nodded, his eyes sparkling with interest. "Yes, really. I've always been fascinated by her style." As they chatted, Ava found herself feeling more and more at ease. He was one of the many weird hippies of all ages hanging around her mom when she was younger. She couldn't help but wonder what else the day would bring, and how fate had thrust Ethan into her world. But one thing was for sure, Ava was eager to find out. Chapter 5. A Glimpse of the Future. As the day went on, Ava found herself feeling more and more connected with Ethan. They talked about everything from art to music to their shared love of adventure. As they walked through the city, Ava couldn't help but feel a sense of wonder at the way Ethan seemed to bring out the best in her. He was easy to talk to, and she found herself feeling more and more comfortable around him. As the sun began to set, Ethan suggested they grab dinner at a small Italian restaurant in the neighborhood. Ava agreed, and they walked in hand. As they sat down at a small table by the window, Ava couldn't help but feel a sense of excitement building inside her. She had no idea what the future held, but she was eager to find out. As they ordered their food and began to chat, Ava found herself feeling more and more attracted to this man. Ethan was easy to talk to, and she found herself laughing and smiling more and more as the night went on. As they finished their meal and prepared to leave, Ethan reached out and took Ava's hand. "I've had a great time tonight," he said, looking into her eyes. Ava's heart melted as she smiled warmly. "I've had a great time too," she said, feeling a sense of wonder building inside her. Ethan leaned in, his eyes sparkling with interest. "I was wondering if you'd like to go out with me again sometime again soon," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Ava's heart was racing as she nodded, feeling a sense of excitement building inside her. "I'd love to," she said, smiling up at him. As they walked out of the restaurant, hand in hand, so naturally, so automatically, Ava couldn't help but feel a sense of excitement at the way things were going. She had no idea what the future held, but she was eager to explore next the coming days, without holding back. As they walked through the city, Ava felt a sense of peace wash over her. She knew that she had found someone special, someone who made her feel seen and heard, someone you could spend forever with. And as they walked, hand in hand, Ava knew that she was exactly where she was meant to be. Epilogue. Ava and Ethan's relationship continued to blossom over the next few weeks. They went on long walks, had deep conversations, and explored the city together. As the days turned into weeks, Ava found herself feeling more and more at ease with Ethan. She knew that she had found someone special, someone who made her feel seen and heard. And as they sat on the beach, watching the sunset together, Ava knew that she had found her soulmate. "I'm so glad I met you," Ava said, turning to Ethan with a smile. Ethan's eyes sparkled with interest as he smiled back at her. "Me too," he said, taking her hand in his. "Me too." The end. Since you got to the end, please like, comment, or subscribe.